No one is ever satisfied, of course, in a situation like this, but we are moving. Vaccination is clearly a priority.
Australian embassy donate 68 million baht to Thailand. So where will this money go?
Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited right now. This is the first time here. I appreciate that you're here.
Well, Sawadee Cup to you and to your viewers. It's great to have you here for the first time. We should do this more often. So this is the Australian Ambassador's residence, and because of COVID at this time, we're not using it as much as we should or we could. So I'm very glad to have you here.
So how was you living here in Thailand during the pandemic? Did you work from home too?
Yes, I did. We take the pandemic very seriously, of course, and so we broke our big team. We've got about, including locally, all of our locally engaged staff, maybe 240 people. We broke them up into Team A and Team B, so only one team is working, and we told everybody who can work from home, stay at home. I also was part of that work from home, even though I'm only 10 metres from work. So I would work from home and put a mask on and would not talk to people in the office. So we've been quite strict in our regime that we've put in place. But the most important thing we have said to all of our staff, Thai and Australian, is if you've got a headache or a bit of a cold throat, don't come to work. That's the main thing. We talk about shared responsibility for everybody's health. So it's been strange because you feel, especially in this side of the embassy where it's very quiet, we don't really have any neighbours, you've got Alliance Française, you could be a million miles from anywhere, and so you have an odd mixture of frustration that you can't do the normal things that you would do, but also it can be quite relaxing. I've got a gymnasium and I've got a pool, so it's okay.
A lot of video that you already made and published in social media is a part of the work from home too?
It's sort of apart from work from home as well, but it's actually more than that. People use social media, people use digital media now, and people rely on that for their first information. They don't go and buy a newspaper. And that's probably especially true for Australians in Thailand. And so for us, it's going where your community is. And so when we've always had a social media program and a public diplomacy program. But when the pandemic first hit and international aviation started to basically collapse, we found there was a great need for us to tell Australians in Thailand or Thais in Australia or people in Australia who wanted to come to Thailand, what's going on? You know, what is the government here doing? What is our government doing in terms of border controls? Can you enter the country? What options are there in terms of flights? And so all of that was very necessary. And for the first, I think about 100 days when the pandemic struck, we did a video every day, just reassuring people. And a very important thing we did, of course, we were organising flights to get people home. So we managed to get a couple of flights that were passing through here, passing through Bangkok going to Australia, and they were empty, an Air Iberia one and a couple of others. And so we helped many Australians get back onto flights. We're still doing that sort of thing too. For all of that, the social media is really important.
Let's talk about COVID-19 situation in Australia. I just saw the report on the number of new COVID cases in Australia today. It showed that the number is very small and it was lower since October 2020. So I wonder what is the key success that the Australian government to battle with this world pandemic?
When the pandemic first appeared in Australia or even globally, we shut down international air travel very quickly, and so people couldn't arrive in Australia. That was back in February last year. Some people criticised the government and said, why are you being so scared? But it was a necessary step. And we've introduced, and our travel is still not free. Australians have to get permission to travel out of Australia, and certainly there's a limited number of of seats going into Australia each night. And so there are Australians who would want to come back and are still waiting to get back into Australia. So very tough but necessary border controls. And then there's very good track and trace, where if we find a COVID case, we have very good methods of finding out who that COVID case saw, who they spoke to, who they mixed with, and we go to those people as well. So both of those things were absolutely critical, and really the same sort of measures as Thailand had. And of course Thailand was travelling so well for so long, and we in Australia looked at Thailand, we thought of ourselves as going just as well. We then hit an extra surge in Victoria, and we had 900 deaths, which just goes to show how difficult this virus is to control. And of course Thailand's run into trouble as well. So we had essentially the same measures as Thailand, and we've kept them up very strictly.
And I saw a serious lockdown too. It's kind of like a strategy that Australian government used.
The lockdowns are the responsibility of individual states and territories. Some states have taken a much stronger position on lockdowns, such as Victoria, and some, like New South Wales, have opted for very stringent track and trace and maybe closing down partially and locally certain activities. And so there's a mixture, because we're a federation and different states can do different things. And that reminds me, when the pandemic first hit in Thailand, I think Buriram was the area to move quickest. So a little bit depends on states and territories. But yes, we've used lockdown and some very tough lockdowns to keep the virus under control.
And the vaccine also. It's very fast that the people over there got vaccinated already.
Well, thank you for saying that, because no one is ever satisfied, of course, in a situation like this. But we are moving. Vaccination is clearly a priority for Australia and for Thailand too. So that's the next step, and we're all looking forward to moving into a post-vaccinated regime. We're going to find out a lot of things, I think, as we move through that stage.
So am I right that the strong strategy is lockdown, vaccine, and border control?
Probably the strongest one has been border control. So even our own citizens not coming back, except to the extent that we can put them all into compulsory quarantine. So again, a mirror image of what Thailand was doing, but then strong track and trace and regional or statewide lockdowns, which were quite tough. That's right. And now, as you say, vaccines.
Recently, I saw the news about like Australian embassy donate 68 million baht to Thailand. So where will this money go?
Well, it was the Australian government, and the Australian Embassy was happy to associate ourselves with that. That really is in cooperation with the WHO and the Thai government, working on things like vaccination data collection and also on communications campaigns. So we're, especially on the border areas with Burma, looking at how you can get the best sense of what the data is, get that data, and that enables you to make better policy, of course, but also communication strategy. Explaining to people why a vaccination is necessary. So that's what the money that we have given to Thailand has been used for. The way we look at it is, if Thailand's got better control of its vaccination statistics and its borders, then we are stronger too. We're all in this together. You asked about the money that we were giving to Thailand, the small amount of funding for vaccination statistics and for communications. We're giving much more to the region, and so that's 15 billion baht going to the other Southeast Asian states and to the Pacific. Thailand wasn't seen to be in the same desperate situation in terms of accessing vaccines at that time, so we gave more to some countries that really don't have the capability. Thailand, strong medical system, skills and policy making. So it's a lesser amount to Thailand in an area, vaccine statistics and communications, where maybe we could make a contribution. We do cooperate on a whole range of medical technology and development issues, and I know that our two foreign ministers, when they spoke just about 4 weeks ago, talked about vaccine availability. I think we're almost travelling on the same road at the same time. We early on, both countries were struggling to get vaccines to be vaccinating their populations, but now the amount of vaccinations or vaccines available is starting to flow. So I think we're pretty much the same in that regard.